I don't know other single women at that time who did what she did.
She wanted to go further in the world. And for her, it became finding a way with her skills in ceramics as a studio potter to figure out how to support herself on her own merits and work.
She really saw, I think, pottery as a vocation.
It needs to be emphasized that Angela is truly self-sufficient.
The fact that Angela really does support her own life with her work, with no outside help, is amazing.
She's a doer, she's a maker, she's an activist, she's a problem solver.
She is really dedicated, and she is a serious, hard worker. She is just in the studio, really committed to the clay.
I think that Angela thinks about the work with clay as language.
I think it's in the Amherst water because Emily Dickinson worked in isolation. She'd made her marvelous poems just a few blocks from where Angela lives. Emily Dickinson wrote her poems not for publication. I think there were only 6 of them published in her lifetime. But with pottery making, you don't just make them and shovel them off into the attic. You have to put them out there for other people to enjoy and use and to help sustain you.
I make work to sell. I don't make work to flatter myself. I don't make work to express myself particularly. If something doesn't sell, I don't ever make it again. On the other hand, I make work that I'm happy making. I make work that I'm proud to sign. I love making things that people use. That's what I make them for. I make them for people to buy and to use. I forget they're all out there. I mean, I've been doing this for 26 years and I probably have averaged 2,000 pots a year. There's a lot of pots out there. Well, I've known I was going to be an artist since I was about 5 or 6 years old, and my family just accepted that was what I was going to be.
She grew up in a working class Italian family. I think probably everyone in her family is pretty tough. I think she probably learned to be tough. And for a woman to support herself for her entire life is, that's not easy.
I've been pretty much self-supporting since I was 18. And to go to college, I needed to have scholarship. I loved the school. I loved the whole atmosphere of it. It was a small school. I loved my classmates. We were very isolated out, sort of outside the outskirts of Rochester. When I was doing my practice teaching, that's the only time that students at Nazareth were allowed to have a car on campus. Well, my dad had a repair garage in Saratoga, so he loaned me a car. And one day, someone suggested we go over to visit Rochester Institute of Technology. We went into School for American Craftsmen and into the stable area of this mansion where the ceramics department was. Here was a room full of students my age making the most beautiful, wonderful, competent pots. And I suddenly realized what I'd missed in my college education. And I literally started crying, looking at these students making these things. We were going by the director's office, Dean Harold Brennan. I knocked on his door and went in. I was so naive. I just told him how I really wanted to come there and study ceramics. And he asked me for a portfolio, and I didn't have a portfolio. I didn't have a camera. I didn't have, I hadn't documented any of my work. But I naively said to him, well, my senior exhibit is up over at Nazareth. You could come and look. And he did. On the strength of my drawings and paintings, he accepted me conditionally to the summer MFA program that RIT had. It was a program designed specifically for teachers. The program went for 5 summers, and at the end of the 5 summers, you got your MFA. So I taught at Nazareth, and I set up an actual ceramics department there. I was there 6 years. But Mary Jane Edwards took that job.
She certainly knew everything about teaching and everything about kilns and everything about, you know, the technology of clay and you know, the development of a body of work and everything that goes into that, because she'd researched it.
But in the meantime, I got a job up in Canada.
Certainly when I knew her in 1970, she was teaching at Sheridan College in Ontario.
Which means in my own work, I had very little time to work. But when you're teaching, you're just full of ideas.
And that was an incredibly liberating time. And it also was a glaring physical representation of mental change. This time of ferment, I think, affected her teaching, it affected her work, obviously, and it probably affected the later choices she made in leaving teaching.
So I just took the leap and quit a tenured professorship in a job that I actually liked. I love teaching.
Here was Angela with all that security. She was teaching in a position she could have stayed in the rest of her career. And it wasn't through lack of interest in teaching, it was rather her intense desire to address her personal work.
I had a transition year between teaching and being a full-time potter as an artist in residence at Penland.
Angela could be one of the role model that we could give to the new generation because she lived by her principle.
To see her throwing is like, I guess, sitting down and seeing a really thorough jazz musician who really knows his music and his instrument, and you just lose it when you're sitting in the audience seeing it.
When I came back from Penland and was looking for a place to live, somebody said, oh, go to Amherst. And it was perfect. This town is run with town meeting. They'll spend half a evening at town meeting discussing nuclear proliferation as though we were going to do it, you know, here in town. I mean, people are just passionate about stuff like that and passing resolutions on it. And I kind of like being in a town that does that. Environmental stuff and things like that, people get real involved with. I bought this house and immediately had to start making some kind of money.
It's not a big house, it's all she needs, it's what she needs, it's what she made for herself. It's a place to live and a place to work. Complete coordination of living and working, that's what her life is about. It's not a flamboyant place, it's just got lots and lots of things to look at.
I feel like I'm just with my friends, you know. I put my friends up on the wall. You know, it's sort of surrounded by my friends here. Art has to be your first priority. And you go to the studio no matter what. And that's always your absolute first priority, is making enough work so you can survive financially. But there are other things that make life worthwhile. Gardening is really important to me. I realized real early that I would be out there all day long because I love it. So I bought myself a little timer I wear around my neck, and I give myself an hour a day. That's 7 hours a week. But the garden is really important to me. First of all, it feeds me for 6 or 7 months of the year. So it's my health club, it's my exercise, it's my contemplation. It's so peaceful. It's been part of my life since I was a child. We had a huge garden when I was a child to feed 6 kids. We all just pitched in and did it. Like an awful lot of Americans, our families, if you go back even a few generations, they were peasants. And peasants, first of all, whatever happens, you got to deal with it. And you get up in the morning, you work all day, and you go to bed. And that is healthy, it's normal, it's how you survive. I've never known anything different. And the truth is, most of my artist friends work 7 days a week.
Each of us has our vehicle, you know, our work, so to speak, which is also our vehicle for understanding and belonging.
That's the first thing I do.
There's a balance in every potter between making things in isolation or in solitary situation and then realizing that what we're making is for other people, and their use of what we make is a way of completing the act of creation.